Hello, welcome to episode 2 of Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast. I want to thank everybody for taking the time and listening last week to episode 1. Got some great feedback about episode 1 and my review of Raw 25. This is the first episode that I'm going to have a guest on, Sir Samurai, local independent wrestler from Sacramento, California. We had a great discussion just about all things independent wrestling, a little WWE talk, a little bit about the local promotion here in Sacramento, SVW. I hope you will enjoy that conversation we had. Want you to take if you have a Twitter, if you have a Facebook, there's a Facebook page up now. It's called Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast. You can look it up, hit the little like button. I'll update you on new episodes or anything you want to talk about, as well as I have a Twitter. The Twitter handle is, as I look at my phone here, I should have been a little more prepared, but hey, what's rock and roll about not being prepared? That's rock and roll for you. Twitter handle is at Nick SRNW podcast. So Nick's RNW podcast. That's the Twitter handle for the official Nick's Rock and Wrestling podcast. So go give me a follow, give me a tweet, retweet any of that, and such. So definitely would appreciate that. Also got the Gmail account. You want questions, anything of that sort, feel free to. Once again, that's rockandwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com or rockandwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com. Real quick, before I get into the conversation with Sir Samurai, I want to recap my Royal Rumble predictions. Mainly, I want to look at the two Royal Rumble matches, which were the men's and the women's. The Royal Rumble was this past Sunday. It was a great event. I thought it was one of the better overall Royal Rumble pay-per-views in recent memory. But I just want to recap the Royal Rumble matches because they both had a lot going on. First, the men's came on relatively early. I was a little shocked by that. I thought that the men's would be later because that's historically where it's always been. But the women's actually closed out the show, and we'll talk about why that was, as you could see as the ending of the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, why that was. But the first was the men's. I was a little shocked here when Finn Balor came out at number 2. Finn being my favorite WWE guy right now, I was a little shocked. I really thought that them putting him at number 2, he would go the distance and win the Rumble. But he was the Iron Man. He went something like 57 minutes. He went down to the final 4. I really thought when he came out at number 2 that he would win, but that wasn't to be. But there were a lot of great things. A couple surprises. The Hurricane came back. Rey Mysterio came back. Those were cool to see. A couple NXT guys. Andre Cien almost came up, the NXT champion, Adam Cole. So it was cool and cool. They had some surprises, which they didn't have last year because the Royal Rumble was so star-studded last year. But this year they had some cool surprises. I enjoyed that. And then it really came down to the Final 4. I was a little worried there because the Final 4 were Finn, Shinsuke Nakamura, Roman Reigns, and John Cena. And I really thought they were going to go the John Cena route or the Roman Reigns route and have an older guy win. But it came down to the final 2 then was Roman and Shinsuke won, which was really, really cool because I think he's in line for a big push. We're going to get that dream match of Shinsuke versus AJ Styles at WrestleMania this year. So I was really excited that they went that route. Other than that, that men's match, there's not much to say except that it was really good. A lot of energy, fast-paced, right out the gate. A lot of funny moments, too, like Heath Slater spending something like 18 minutes out in the arena, but only like 30 seconds in the ring because he kept getting, every time somebody came out, they'd beat him up. I liked that spot. That was pretty funny. But really, really good men's Royal Rumble. Probably one of the better men's Royal Rumble matches in recent memory. It was really, really hard to call. You had a couple options of people that could win, but glad to see that Shinsuke won, and they're going to give him a nice little push here coming into Mania season. Then the main event was the Women's Royal Rumble, and I made the prediction last week that I thought they were telegraphing that Asuka was going to win, so I thought that Ronda Rousey would show up at number 30 and win the Rumble, but that wasn't to be. Asuka came out at 25, and she pretty much dominated from that moment. There were a lot of cool moments in the women's match. You had a lot of legends come back. You had Beth Phoenix, you had Lita, Trish Stratus, Kelly, Beth Phoenix. All of them came back. The Beth Phoenix Nia Jax stare down was awesome. Both the Bella twins were there. But Asuka went on to win, which I thought was great. Keep her undefeated, keep her looking strong. But the moment that literally broke the internet was after the match, Charlotte, the SmackDown Women's Champion, Alexa Bliss, the Raw Women's Champion, and Asuka were all standing in there, and boom, the music hit. Out came Ronda Rousey from the UFC. The crowd went bananas. The graphics all had the Rowdy, kind of like Rowdy Piper. I guess she's going to go with the moniker Rowdy Ronda Rousey. Say that fast 3 times. But that's going to be, it was cool. She kind of had a stare down with all 3 of them. Then she went to Stephanie and shook her hand. So it was huge. And I thought that was really well done by the WWE that they did it at the Royal Rumble, because that allowed, Super Bowl Monday, literally this week of the Super Bowl, everyone's talking about WWE and what happened at the Royal Rumble. So very good. There was a little bit of backlash, I guess, from some female competitors like Sasha Banks and Nikki Bella and Nia Jax that they're not necessarily happy that Ronda was there and that the Royal Rumble, first women's Royal Rumble, was taken aback for Ronda's appearance. But Ronda's a huge star, and that's the ability to make a lot of money. So I don't really see why they would be mad about that, because that's some huge money making opportunities for all the women. It's going to make the women even better. So we'll see going into this WrestleMania season what it looks like. But we're going to take a little quick break here and then get into conversation with Sir Samurai. All right, here, episode 2, Rockin' Wrestling Podcast, here with my guest, Sir Samurai, independent wrestler from Sacramento. You're based out of Sacramento?
Yes, sir.
So first, some of my listeners don't really probably know a lot about kind of independent wrestling and how it works, but specifically like Sacramento region. So like a little bit about maybe like what's SPW's like history? How did it start? I know it's been around, this is the 18th year?
Yeah, it'll be 18 in April will be the 18th anniversary.
Your anniversary shows are usually the monster show.
They are the big show of the year, our WrestleMania.
Your WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So how did SPW start? Do you know the origins? Were you there?
I started in 2002 as the ring announcer. It started in 2000. A guy named Rich Roby, and it was just him and his friends. Almost a backyard fed, not fully trained, sort of trained type thing. And then soon after, the big ugly JD Bishop, who's the current champ, took over. And got rid of the people he did not feel were worthy, and opened the SPW Training Academy. And then ever since then, a good percentage of the wrestlers have come from SPW for the roster, maybe like 50%, and then the others are just from other local companies,
cool.
Reno and Bay Area and stuff.
Cool. So I know that if you go like on your SP Training Academy, you guys have had some pretty, good talent that's come
We've
out
had
of
some
that.
successes. Probably the most famous one is Johnny. I think Impact is now what he's called on Impact, but John Morrison, Johnny Mundo, he was in Tough Enough for the WWE right when I was starting off. So he was a referee when I was a ring announcer, and then I ring announced his first match, and then he went to the WWE and never looked back.
He's a great talent.
Yeah.
He's all that parkour training he does too really helps. I like he had because the Royal Rumble was last Sunday. That one spot he did where jumping off the barricade, that was so cool.
And then also Christina Von Erie is a graduate of ours, and her little brother is currently wrestling with us. Timothy Thatcher, who's widely considered one of the best indie wrestlers in the world.
Yeah,
And
I saw last year that WWE did like a little profile on him,
yep.
so he's got some buzz around him, and
Yes, yes, they are more interested in him than he is in them. He really likes. He's living in Germany now, running the WXW school and loving life. So he's happy. He's not looking for much more. He comes to America, works indie shows from time to time. But yeah, and then on if you watch SmackDown, you see an Asian ref. That's Bruce. He started with me. We were bartenders at Applebee's together, and he came to support me as a ring announcer and went, "Oh, that looks like fun. I want to get involved somehow." And has made it all the way to the WWE.
what I know that also too, kind of following your social media, the NXT ref, right?
Yeah, Drake Younger.
Yeah.
Drake was. We can't claim him as much as he says we can because he says we should claim all the refs. Drake was a huge indie star from back east, and his wife's family was from Grass Valley, so he had to relocate. And when we did, he started APW was his first match, and it was against me, and I fell in love with the guy because he was so positive and so good. So many wrestlers miss the little things and they think like, "Oh, I can't lose; it'll make me look bad," or "I've got to get all my stuff in." Where Drake was like, "I've never been to California. You're winning." Made me look really strong, but we both had a good match, and he ended up winning all the belts in SPW, and then got signed as a referee.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting you point that out, because I hear a lot of guys like Jericho and stuff say like, we all know it's predetermined.
Right.
Like, why is there such an ego about wins and losses?
I have a theory that it comes by who you were trained by. Ugly always trained us that you can look strong losing. You can look strong in any situation. No one can make you look bad. No one can give you a bad match. But other companies full on, you must look strong. You must never be embarrassed. You must. And I think if your trainer drills that into your head when you start, you never really realize, nah, man, it's wrestling. You can do anything. As long as you're memorable after your match, it doesn't really matter whose arm is raised.
Yeah, I think I've heard that the old adage is one guy gets over and then the other one stays over kind of situation. You're like, you can get over without winning.
Right.
So you mentioned that you got into like the ring announcing. So was it just kind of like, oh, I kind of want to do that? Or like, how did you get into the business?
I never really dreamed that I could be a wrestler. It was one of those, it's like people, when you're a kid, you dream of being an astronaut, but when you're a grown up, you know that you don't have the math scores, and you just know it's not possible.
It's not possible.
So it's a fantasy, but not a realistic dream. But I had a website where I was writing about wrestling because I was getting my degree in English, and it gave me something to write about. So I would review Monday Nitro every Monday, and
that's interesting.
Things like that.
I started being a WWE guy originally. Either I was a WCW guy. 97 is when I got into it, and Sting and the Hogan thing.
Right.
That's when I got into it. It's weird that kind of.
I wrote for Byron Saxon's website. I didn't know this until years later when Bruce, the ref, posted a picture of the two of us, and Byron was like, "You know Sir Samurai? I know Sir Samurai." I didn't know I knew him, but he knew I wrote for him. And that led to an indie fed in 2002 contacted me and said, "Hey, we know you write about wrestling. Have you ever ring announced? We're doing a show coming up with Conan on it. Would you like to ring announce?" And I had already taken the night off work to go to the show. And I was like, "Yeah, I could ring announce. I'd never ring announced. But I'm a waiter. I figured I could talk."
Yeah.
I ring announced for them, ring announced for another company, and I was going to SPW as a fan because SPW was a whole different level. The other companies I was working for would just run a gym, have a random roster, like, who's coming? Okay, we'll have him in the first match, whereas SPW had their home base. Their shows were every 2 weeks at the time. So I would sit in the crowd and be like, I want to ring announce for them. I thought that was the end-all, be-all. And one of the guys, they did a two-man team. Dangerous Dylan was his name. His band, the Mr. T Experience, was going to Japan, so they needed a sub for one night. And I was the sub for one night, and I never left. So I went as the ring announcer, and then my best friend Melissa, who also worked at Applebee's, started training. And I would go to her to camp and watch. I'd help set up the ring and tear down the ring. And eventually a guy named Sal Tomaselli was like, there's no reason you couldn't train. I'm like, no, I'm 28. I'm far too old to be a wrestler at 28. He was like, give it a shot. So I started training with the goal being just to have a match. I would go back to being a ring announcer, but I wanted to say I wrestled once. It went better than I thought it would.
Yeah, because I've seen it was either 2015 or 2016 you were trying to get booked every single weekend.
Yes. It was, I set the goal after that first match, I set the goal of 500 matches, and I hit that. And I went, well, I'm not done yet. I still feel okay. So now I've set the goal of 1,000 matches, which I should hit by the end of this year because I only have 75 to go. And I'm booked most weekends, and I get a lot of double shots. But yeah, it was 2 or 3 years ago where I call it the perfect year, where it was like, I think May, where I went, I've wrestled every week this year. And I didn't say anything. And then August went, I've wrestled every week this year. And I'm looking at my calendar going, I might be able to get the perfect year. And was able to pull it off. Had to go to Utah in December to get a match.
Wow, that's cool. That to go travel that far, especially
Yeah.
kind of starting out and then blossoming. So, been in the business for that long and to get that many matches, that's
Yeah.
seasoned veteran now. You are.
Yeah, I don't really like. I look at the guys who are ahead of me, and I still consider them ahead of me. But I've wrestled probably as many matches as anyone else in NorCal because I've been lucky. I've wrestled every single month. I've never had to take a month off. Whereas most people have gotten the bad concussion and taken 6 months off, or quit and come back. Whereas I've been consistent. So I don't know where I measure up, but I don't think many people have done more than me, besides Rick Luxury. Because that guy, if I have 2 shows in a weekend, he has 4. And he's similar to me. Whereas I can't think of a time where he got hurt and was gone for a while, where most of the guys have. So I'm up there, but I still don't. I mean, I don't look at others and be like, you know, oh, someday I'll be at your level or I'm better than you. It's the calendar's kind of irrelevant. You're either good or you're not, and the calendar's only like an introductory point. Like I've been doing it 10 years, but then once you wrestle a guy, well, yeah, you suck. Because there's plenty of guys who've been doing it a long time, but they do it once every 4 months.
Yeah, they don't
at their home fed against their friends, and they only know how to do that. And then there's guys like Rick who will work anywhere, anytime, anybody. And those are the guys I think who become good because you have to wrestle to improve.
So now that we kind of talked about your like history, have you been like a fan all, from like the get go? I know like me, I was a young fan and just all the way through and just always watched it.
Big fan through high school. When I moved out in college, I didn't have a TV for a year, so I went a year where I had nothing. The first week I got a TV in my apartment was the night that Scott Hall came out of the crowd on Nitro.
Oh.
And I remembered Razor Ramon, and I was just like, wait a minute, what is this? And I think I watched every Nitro from that night forward and every Raw, but like I've never missed an episode since. Because it just, that's what I loved about it is to me, wrestling's at its best when anything can happen. And so often it becomes formulaic, but that was a moment where you believed something was happening that wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, I remember the Monday Night Wars. It was crazy because now you have DVRs, but I remember like, well, I don't watch Raw tonight, so I got to take Nitro, or I don't watch Nitro.
Right.
And you had to like
to make a decision.
Yeah. It's not a DVR where like, well, I can catch the other one later. Like if you wanted to record it, you had to pop a VCR and record. So that's cool. A lot of questions I have about independent wrestling is like WWE. Everybody knows like Vince McMahon. He's the one. Like how does the booking end work? How does like creative work? Obviously, do they keep storylines integrated from show to show, or is it more just their matches?
It really depends on company. We run consistently the third Sunday of every month, so we tend to have storylines that we build to the anniversary show and the Halloween show, our 2 big shows. There are other companies that run 4 times a year, and then it's just pretty much you have your champions and we'll put a roster together. There's companies that run every other month who full on give me a script, not just of what they want from the show, but we want you to circle, then lock up and do this, and it's like overbooked, and it takes away the creativity.
Yeah, the real, maybe a little bit of the realness too.
Yeah,
synchronized.
A guy who hasn't done much telling me how I should end my match, and I'm like, no, I don't feel that today. I'm going to do this instead. So it really varies from company to company, but every company has at least a little, whether it's just as simple as the bad guy champion that everyone wants to beat, but there's all sort of storyline. And most companies, the owner's the booker, or some, the owner has a guy who does it for him because it gets old after a while. Because everyone complains, no, I want to be in the main event, or I want to do this, or I want to do this. So as an owner, it's nice when somebody who you respect comes to you and says, hey, if you want, I can book for a while. And you're like, yeah, okay. you take this headache on.
Yeah, because I could imagine a booking meeting with, being in a band, I know how much 4 guys have an ego, a roster, maybe 30 or 40 guys there having an ego. Well, I need to go over, and I need to get my stuff in, and how difficult that could be, and how much of a headache that would be.
Well, and it's less than, because that's 99% of the wrestlers get it. The ego's not that big of a deal. The problem is real life gets in the way, so you have this elaborate show that you mapped out 3 weeks ago, and everyone's signed off on it, and then on show day you get 4 cancellations. of key spots, and somebody who's awesome happens to show up, and you're like, well, that guy's in the building, we have to use him. So no matter how prepared you are, at 3 o'clock on show day for SPW, there's always a group of people in the kitchen going, okay, what if we move this here? No, we got to move. No, he's running late for work, and he's got to go to work, so he needs to be early. No matter how much you pre-plan, show day's always going to be stressful because real life.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Just even at the smaller level of wrestling, you still get those creative changes last minute that we hear about on. Oh, there was creative changes at the Royal Rumble. 2 hours before they went on.
Right.
Well, at a lower independent level, same thing. Well, we're making creative changes during the show. We got to switch these guys out.
2 shows ago, I was the opening match, and my theme was playing. And me, the DJ, and the booker were literally rewriting the show when we realized 2 people hadn't showed up, but we hadn't noticed. And I'm like, you guys fix it. I've got to go to the ring now. Did my match get back? Did you fix it? Yeah. Okay. I don't even care. Just whatever. Let's go.
So then it obviously you guys they put the show together. You guys get a lot of like you said, most owners, most bookers are going to give you that kind of creative freedom, and you kind of put your match together. Is it, I've heard some wrestlers, you put it together, or you just call it on the fly? How you particularly like to work?
Generally speaking, nowadays, like this generation, which I'm allowed to say because I'm old, this generation likes to spend an hour putting their match together and discuss every aspect. We'll do this. I'm not from this generation. Here's Steve Austin calls it the fishbone. Here's what we want to do story-wise, and then most of my stuff's playing off the crowd. So if I write everything in back, but I don't know how the crowd's going to respond, it doesn't work. So I'll know how we're going to finish. I like to never know how we're going to start because I like the crowd to dictate. If they're giving us a lot of heat, then we're going to play with them for 5 minutes. If they're just sitting there indifferent, then it's like, oh, I guess we should wrestle now. But I tend to try to not overly write everything in the locker room. Because as I said, it's a live performance. You don't know how they're going to respond to stuff. If they're not caring about certain things, you can't be married. No, we've already agreed that we're going to do this, this, and this, even though they don't care.
Yeah, that's Cena. I know is one that calls on the fly. I'm not a big Cena fan, but his matches are always good because he's playing off that crowd.
Right, exactly.
So, whether it's 5 minutes of let's go Cena sucks, it's still like, well, this is a good match. I can't.
Well, and I think it's even more important at our level because with Cena, even if the crowd's not caring, you've still got like worldwide TV and everything is accomplished. With us, if there's only 40 people in the building, and the moment you come out, 10 are bored. Now you're worried that boredom will spread to the other third. You have to get everyone. I always tell the students at the academy that your enemy's the person on the cell phone. If you're starting your match and the people are typing on their phones, not paying attention, that's who you need to get. So even if you didn't have something planned to get them, you must now think of something, a loud noise or a funny moment or something that'll make them go, oh, what'd I miss? In hopes that you then keep their attention for the rest of the match.
Yeah, because I know like in rock and roll, it's easier to play to a big crowd. You have a big crowd, smaller crowd, and I'm guessing being a wrestler, same thing. Smaller crowd, harder to play to than a big crowd because anyone can play an arena. Right. Can you play a club with 12 people in it?
I always say it hurts a lot less with a big crowd. It's just I still get up for every match, but it's so much easier to get up when there's 300 people who are excited than 30 people who are cold, or bored or hated the last match or whatever, and you come out to crickets. Now everything's going to hurt just a little bit more.
Yeah, especially going on after that last match. Oh God, they weren't good now.
Yeah, that one didn't work. I must now bring them back because you'll hear wrestlers say that all the time because we're all cheerleaders for each other because we want a good show. But people often say, "Okay, you need to get them back." Because like if I'm in the main event and the earlier matches aren't working, I need the wrestlers before me because I know that every match that doesn't deliver, it's that much harder to get them back. So we want the wrestlers to hit home runs. Because if the crowd's fired up, then my life's so much better when it's my turn.
So much easier to go out there and do your job.
Yeah.
Obviously, independent wrestling varies. I mean, there's guys that make a living at it. There's guys that how does the payouts work? Because I know being in a band, it was like you sell this many tickets, you get this much payout. Is it broken down scale wise, or is it just like
it's pretty much whatever you negotiate? And then the problem with that is most of us, I guess, are too lazy to renegotiate. So it's like you come into a company for $20 when they're first starting off, and then all of a sudden years later they're doing big, and you're like, why am I still making $20? Because that guy who I trained probably is getting 100, and because you answer only to yourself, and really it's on the wrestler to make as much as they can make. It's not another guy's fault that he held out for 300 and I agreed to work for 40. But boy, I hate finding that out because in my head I assume we're all getting the same. You know, in SPW, pretty much everyone gets the same base pay. I like to say that nobody gets paid; they just get some gas money. You work SPW because you want to work SPW. You enjoy it, or it's convenient, or your friends are there, or you enjoy the atmosphere. But I wait tables at Applebee's. At the start of the show, I have no money. Whatever comes in is what I give out at the end of the night. So, everyone gets like $20. But other companies, how much do you want? And then 100. I can't give you 100. 50, and you get what you can get. And that's why it's important to have merchandise, because I've known guys who get paid $10 but then sell $300 worth of shirts, and even though they're the opening match, they got paid more than everyone on the card.
Yeah, I hear that if you can, especially on the indies, you don't have to make a cut with the
right
with
yes
the promoter. It's all your
every once in a while you hear a promoter who does that, and I always roll my eyes, because to me, if a promoter wants to cut of my merch, they better be paying me well to work their show. We always say at SPW, we're like, make as much stuff as you want. It's your money. Get paid. Because why not? Ideally, as a promoter, I want people waking up on show day not dreading the show. Because there's good companies and there's bad companies. And I try to avoid working for ones where I wake up and go, oh, that's right, I've got to go here tonight. You know what I mean?
yeah. I've
there should be the excitement of, I get to go here tonight. I get to wrestle, not, oh, that's right, I'm going to Sacramento. So whether it's money or whatever, you need to be able to have a reason to be excited about the show you're going to.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. There's been a few venues I've played. I'm like, oh, son of a
This
bitch.
one again.
This one again.
Yeah.
And the pay is not good, but
right.
why am I doing it? But
right.
You're doing it because you
love it.
But
it's better than being on your couch, because that's another thing we always say. Nothing's going to happen on your couch at home. You know what I mean? No one's going to all of a sudden discover you and go, I'm opening a Fed and I want you to be my champ, if you don't go to a show. You have to be on these awful, awful shows in hopes that they lead to slightly better shows, or that you learn something. You're like, oh my God, I can do this, and the crowd will pop. Now I'm that much better.
Yeah, I've heard once you stop learning that everybody continues to learn, even like the top guys in the world are still learning their craft.
Yep.
I mean, I think I was listening to some type of podcast and they said, well, AJ Styles has been in the business for how long, but his best matches are right now, and he's pushing 40.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So it takes time to get there. So let's talk about championships. How many championships have you won? Have you kept track? How many?
I currently hold 8.
Whew.
So I'm a champion in 8 different or 7 NorCal companies and 1 Southern California company. Probably 20 all told, because a few that I've won lost. But at the moment, I've got one of those big Christmas packing crates in my bedroom that holds all the belts. And when I'm getting ready for a show, I'm like, where am I going tonight? Okay, I'm gonna need this one.
How does that work exactly? Does the company just make their own, like, especially since you have some, help in running SPW? I've always wondered that going to a few indie shows. I'm like, how do they make the belt? How do they choose the designers? Is it just like, what best deal can we get to
pretty much what best deal? When I started off, everyone just used replica belts painted. That was the old school, you know what I mean? It was the WCW US title off of eBay for $75, and you paint it and you cover it. Now things have gotten cheaper, so a lot of people are getting customized belts to different degrees of success. So in SPW, our 2 tag titles are painted versions of the old King of the Cage belts. The Extreme title is custom, that a student, instead of paying his dues back in 2002, made the belt himself and was like, I donate this, and that covered all of his training.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
And then the heavyweight title was a full-blown through Wildcats, who makes like all the fancy belts. That one cost us $1,000, because we had an old painted belt that was falling apart, but we kept growing, and we had students who were becoming famous, and the name was getting out there, and I thought it was wrong that the name's getting out there, but yet our heavyweight belt is a taped together WCW belt.
It's like the old hardcore belt, all beat up.
Yep.
And
so
stuff.
it was the last thing I ever used a credit card on. I spent $1,000 on that belt, ripped up my credit cards, just because I want a belt that we as a company could be proud of, that you'd want in your promo picture. Because some belts, if you're doing a promo picture, you're like, yeah, let's put that off to the side, because it's not.
It doesn't look very well.
Yeah, it looks.
Something's not like the others.
Yeah.
So talk like a little bit. Obviously, Sir Samurai being your character. How does Indy from promote? Did they let you stick with? Oh, I've created this character and I go from promotion to promotion? Because I've seen some guys like, wait, I know that guy, but he's using a different name here. Is it pretty much your freedom, or
it varies from company to company? Some companies, the bookers are like dungeon masters, and they come up with a character, and then they just need someone to find them. I need a cowboy. Are you willing to be a cowboy? Yes, I'll be a cowboy. And you ignore whatever. I've been around long enough to where Sir Samurai is an established name in NorCal. It's known. I'm not saying put me on the card puts 30 people in the crowd, but a couple more people might come out if I'm on the card. That being said, Sir Samurai as a character is a noble baby face, a comedy baby face, a chicken shit heel, a brave heel, depending on the company or even the match, what's needed. And so I often ask the promoter, what do you want from me tonight? Especially if it's a new company, who are you looking for? Because I can do it all. I'm pretty well rounded. I just need to have the promoter hold up a hoop so I can successfully jump through it. Younger guys, they're not developed yet. So often you have to sit them down and go, here's what I'm looking for. Don't do this, do this. Because you get plenty of guys who are supposed to be heels, but they want to be cheered. So they hit a nice move and then they feed the crowd, and there's nothing heel about that at all. So some people's hands need to be held more than others.
So does in terms of like your character, tell us a little bit about more better than chicken shit heel. Like what is the core?
The core, and for years I was a heel everywhere, and how I would describe it was I was sort of like CM Punk. I would preach honor and fair play, but then as soon as the ref didn't look, I would cheat. So the crowd would immediately hate me because I'd be like, I'm better than you because I don't need to lie and I don't need to cheat and I will out wrestle you. Hey, look, a bird, low blow, type things. But now it's evolved, where I still preach honor and fair play, whether a good guy or a bad guy. But as a good guy, I tend to hit no moves and I just get my butt kicked at the very end. If I win, I get a move out of nowhere. I take a lot of abuse. As a bad guy, shortcuts, whine a lot depending on the company. I'm very funny, which sounds egotistical to say, but sometimes as a heel, I will play the comedy route. Talk about how big I am, and then get knocked down 10 times in a row.
Well, I'll give you the funny bit because I remember I went to WrestleMania when it was in Santa Clara.
Yeah,
and then I happened to discover you guys through a Facebook ad or something. So I came out to your, I want to say it was the anniversary show right after, and you had the assless chaps on like Shawn Michaels. So that was cracking up. I was like, this is a great play on something we just saw too, because I see sometimes you guys will do that. Kind of like, well, let's play on what the WWE is doing. So I think that garners good attention, and if you don't take yourself too serious, I think that helps with it.
My biggest philosophy is, what's the rest of the card doing? I'm going to do something different. If everyone else is being a clown, I'm going to be Japanese strong style. If everyone else is strong style, I have no desire to try to compete with everybody else, so that I'm going to do something different. Because at the end of the night, I want them to remember me when they're leaving. Whether I won or lost, or I was the main event or the opening match, I want the crowd to be like, that Samurai guy was entertaining. And that's always been my goal for myself and for the Honor Society as a group, that when our music plays, I want people to go, oh, this will be good. I don't know what I'm about to see, but this music represents something that's entertaining versus, oh no, this guy. So I like to look at the card and be like, what are you guys doing? Okay, I'm not going to do that. What do you got? Okay, now I know what I'm going to do.
So Honor Society, do you primarily work tags then? Mostly when you book shows?
Yeah, as a group, right now I think I'm one half of tag team champion in 5 different companies. Drake Frost, my primary partner, tore his bicep. Scoot, who was the backup partner, tore his meniscus. So now Pat Fitzpatrick and I are tag teams everywhere, because a lot of the companies, you have to be fluid because real life gets in the way. So a lot of companies sort of are doing the Freebird rule so that they don't have to strip us of the belts. So thus I've been able to maintain my championships. Just Pat's replaced Scoot and Frost.
You created yourself a stable.
Yes, exactly.
Out of necessity.
Yeah.
So going back kind of to your roots in wrestling, do you, when you put a match together or you watch wrestling, do you go, these are my guys, are my favorite? Have you pulled stuff from other, who was the big, like, oh, I want to be like that guy for you?
My biggest guys are less moveset, but Mick Foley, Eddie Guerrero, and William Regal. And Arn Anderson, I'll throw him in also that way because 4 is a good number for wrestling. They never had bad matches. Like, even if they were in there with a radio DJ or they found a way to make their stuff entertaining, and that's what I try to take. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
versus being like, I don't want to be Shawn Michaels, because clearly I'm not Shawn Michaels. I can take abuse, so I've done some Foley-esque stupidity over the years. I've done barefoot thumbtack matches and, dove off of backboards and, some crazy bumps. But, and I love that because very clearly, if you're a fan, you know that Foley would do anything for wrestling.
Oh, yes, Foley.
There's no doubt. You can't, even if you don't like it, you can't question his love of the
I agree
business.
with you that I've never seen him have a bad match for, like, the not typical wrestler body type.
Right.
I've never seen Mick Foley have a bad match because I'm
Right.
like, he just either takes abuse or his comedic side, whatever it
Something,
is, something grabs you because I'm like,
Yep.
I really can't think of a bad
Yep.
Mick Foley match. I mean,
Yep.
even as Dude Love, which I didn't like that character, I
Right.
was like, he still had good matches.
Yeah. So people like him and as I said, Eddie Guerrero, you never saw them half-ass it or phone it in. You could tell whatever spot they had on the card. Like I prefer not being main event. I love being first, get the crowd fired up, put my gear on, and watch my friends wrestle. Like ideally, you know what I mean. There's other people where if they're the main event, but if they're opening match, they come out low key. I like the guys who doesn't matter where they are, doesn't matter who the opponent is, doesn't matter if they're heel or face. What do you want? I'm gonna nail it. And those are the guys I try to pattern myself off of.
Okay. So a little bit more. Just about like, I see here we're sitting in an apartment. You have a massive collection of just
Yes.
memorabilia. Any prized possession in terms of memorabilia that you have?
There's not necessarily like prized possession because it's just a matter. I've lived in the same apartment for 11 years, and before I lived here, I lived with the same woman for 10 years. So we had a house, and only my bedroom was allowed to be mine. And then all of a sudden, I had a place where it was all mine. So I just kept putting stuff up. There's probably my favorite thing that makes me laugh is there's a picture of me on top of a ridiculously high cage, and I'm about to dive off the cage.
Oh,
and it's
wow.
outdoors in Portland, Oregon. And it was a show we were told was going to draw thousands because it was a rap concert, and it only drew the wrestlers and like 5 other people. But as I climbed, I was going to dive off the door of the cage, and CJ Curse, who wrestled as Dante for SPW for years, just yelled, "Don't be a wimp, go off the top." So I did that move solely because of one man in the crowd giving me crap. So that always makes me laugh that I'm that stupid that, his peer pressure made me go, "Oh, come off the top of the cage," for nobody at all.
So that's that brings into a great question. About like, because obviously WWE has the production and all that.
Sure.
How does like specialty matches like a cage match work on the indies or anything like that? How do you guys just let's figure out how we can get a steel cage in here?
Pretty much in NorCal, there's a couple cages. If you don't have one, you have to rent one from the promotions who do. But it takes so long to set up that often it's not really worth it, because it's like, now we're going to take an hour-long intermission so we can set up for our main event. So a cage match is unique. Other gimmicks like that, it's usually a combination of, hey, we want to build to something. What would you be into doing? Oh, I wouldn't mind a ladder match, or something like this. And it's a give or take. And then there's some times where I worked a company recently in Reading where the flyer came out and it said Sir Samurai in a chair and pumpkin match. And somebody contacted me and says, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what gimmick match I'm in, but I'm guessing it's going to involve chairs and pumpkins." But yeah, usually the wrestlers are involved because you're asking them to take more risks, or not necessarily more money. It's not like your pay goes from $20 to $200 because you're doing something stupid.
Yeah, I know the big one on the indies is the light bulb spot, which is dangerous because I know there was somebody that got like a vein with the light bulb spot. Have you ever taken any of those?
I've taken more light tubes than probably top 2 or 3 in NorCal. It's generally speaking because every year or so in SPW we'll do a fans bring the weapons match, and some fan always brings the light tubes. There's it's inevitable that they are there, and usually I'll do them because last fans bring the weapons match there was 6 of us. And we all just basically, that match you can't plan in the locker room because you don't know what's
going to be
what props are out there. But we'll all speak up. What are you willing to do? Because I'm a firm believer no one should ever do anything they don't want to do. If you're a wrestler who doesn't want to do light tubes, then don't touch them. It's that simple. But there's people like Jekyll's and I who haven't met the thing we're not willing to do yet. So we'll be like, well, I'll do a spot with them and I'll do a spot. So generally, if they're involved, I'll be the one who does them.
What's the craziest weapon that the fans bring the weapons match?
I don't know. There's been some weird ones. The first time I ever did fans bring the weapons match, somebody brought a toaster, and in the toaster was toast, and in the toast was thumbtacks.
Oh.
And you're just like, well, that's weird.
They went to a lot of work to really.
They brought a rose branch once, that was just covered in thorn, and that was awful.
Oh, that would
because the crowd doesn't like, you need things that visually look cool, and that was just a branch. But when you get hit, you're like, wow, that really was awful. Yeah, there's been a lot of creative things over the years. People make things. That's always the fun one. I have a paddle in my room that has my face on it. Because somebody made, and I'm getting beat up with a paddle that has me on it.
Who's some of your favorite guys to work with?
Um, my favorites are Thatcher, which I think Thatcher's universally everyone's favorite to work with because he's so good and so simple. He doesn't want to talk in the locker room at all, other than who's winning. How long are we supposed to go? See out there, mate. That's simple. There's no stress. There's no, oh God, I don't remember what's supposed to happen on the ninth duck. You know. Plus, I've known him since day one of the business. He's one of my best friends. Same token, Drake Frost, who's my tag team partner. They say in wrestling you hit your friends harder than you hit anyone else. So there's a circle of Frost, Jekyll's, Bobby Hart, and I. We kill each other. If I throw clotheslines and I'm not bruised from the clothesline, then I feel like cheated myself. But then I would never do that with the average wrestler because it's not needed. But when I'm in there with those three guys, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna kill each other. And there's a trust factor because we've done it enough times to where we're not. Whatever happens, happens. Oh, you busted my nose, no big deal.
Yeah,
it happens. You know.
Have you ever had a situation? I know because obviously I was just listening to some wrestling stuff about. I don't know if you caught the Strowman Lesnar situation where
we all caught that live.
Because I heard the beep and then I played it back and I was like, he just said, "Slow the fuck down."
Yep.
So have you ever had a situation like that with a younger wrestler or anybody that catches you and then you gotta kind of hey, slow down?
There's been the senior guy's job is to slow the rookie down, and there's no situations where I've punched a guy in the face because he need me first. It's more like, hey, careful.
Not everybody's an asshole like Brock Lesnar.
Exactly. There's relax, slow down. It's have fun with it because the new guys are always, a million miles. I gotta do this. It's like, let the crowd digest what you're doing. No, but the Lesnar Strowman thing was, you expect better from your champion.
You do. I've always been fascinated by he's such a dick.
Yeah.
But he's like such a great performer that
right.
You got to be like,
yep.
Well, and I've never seen anybody that Vince gets a hard on for that. Well, you can pretty much do what you want.
Right.
It's so interesting with that dynamic between I'm like, Brock can pretty much do whatever he wants and get away with it. I'm like, he just, if he wanted to, could have cold cocked a guy.
Yeah.
Right there and just been like. Well,
I just wondered when I saw that, I fantasized as it happened that it would go even more out of control, and you would just see Kane in the background going, "Yeah, I'm done."
Yeah,
because Kane's the consummate professional. Never heard anyone say anything bad about that man. So well respected. I can just see him watching the two of them start legit fighting, and him going, "Yeah, I don't have time for that.
I'm running for mayor.
I'm out. It's a singles. Good luck. Sorry, Vince. If you want to go out there and fight them, good luck."
Any former WWE guys or guys that come back to the Indies, I know they get released from major companies, you've ever been in the ring with?
I've wrestled Gangrel multiple times, and he's maybe the nicest guy on earth. First time I ever wrestled him was for a company that doesn't exist anymore, and I was a regular there, and Gangrel was passing through. And Gangrel was not happy that I was losing. He was like, "You're going to be here next month. Why would you lose to me? It doesn't no good." And I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'm wrestling Gangrel. I'll lose to anyone. I'm never going to throw a fit. I'll throw a fit if I'm winning on matches I shouldn't win. Then I'll be like, no. I got to lose this one. It's better for the story. But he wouldn't talk to the promoter. He's like, okay, so I'm winning, but I'm coming back next month and you're winning that one.
Oh, that's very cool.
Things like that. All of my interaction with names has been positive. I've seen other people have bad ones, but it's what they do for a living.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're, hi, who are you? What do you like to do? I don't like to, and if I was to say, oh, my finisher's a suplex to the floor, I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. But most wrestlers treat other wrestlers like equals, even if we're not. I wrestled Eugene after he left the WWE the first time, and he treated me like his equal. I wasn't, because he'd worked Mania.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so in no world am I Eugene's equal, but he spoke to me like an equal, and we figured out the match, and we did the match.
Yeah, I've always liked wrestling for that aspect of, especially the backstage, is everyone seems to be equals. Even if you've been in the main event and you're wrestling independent, you're equal. Because I know I've opened for bands where this guy's like, well, these guys are the opening band, they're a local band, I don't give a fuck these guys.
Right.
Type thing. So I've never heard too many stories about that.
And there are stories. There are the exceptions, the people who show up for a booking knowing they're booked to wrestle the champion and lose, who then go, yeah, I can't lose. We flew you here. You saw the poster. You knew you weren't winning the belt. but they waited to the last moment to be, oh, by the way, I can't lose, so that they could get the money. Like I've seen that a couple times, but most, yeah, everyone. Because I worked Jerry Lynn on his retirement tour. I worked Shane Douglas.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
I worked
I heard
Delirious in his only NorCal appearance, and they were all, what do you like to do? Oh, what if we do that? No, what if we do this instead? And then I become better because I see how their mind works. No, we shouldn't do that here. We do it here, it pays off with this.
Yeah, it's always Shane Douglas is interesting because like he looks and sounds like a nice guy, but then you hear stories
Yeah.
about like, well, he's got beef with this guy. And I'm like,
Yep.
maybe he just got beef with the upper tier guys because I hear
Yeah.
on the when he does independent shows, he's nothing but
The
nice.
Indy show that I worked with him was a train wreck. It was in Clear Lake, which is up middle of nowhere, California. The ring was a death trap that was a foot off the floor. Like it's one of those where you could step up on accident. The ropes were saggy. There was only, I think, 6 wrestlers showed up. So the opening match became the winner got Shane in the main event. So I worked twice, but he didn't complain once. I imagine he got paid what he was offered, but he was a consummate professional. And then was stuck here for an extra day, so made phone calls and ended up getting booked on the same show we were all on the next day. And somebody dropped him off at my apartment, and he rode with us to Bushido and Stockton. He was looking to get work, but he was. You hear stories and you never know. And I always think that some people just have bad days. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That story may be true, but that's one story out of every day of his life, and maybe he was a dick. Maybe he was hungover, or his wife just cheated on. You never know. But yeah, the 2 days I spent with him, he was awesome. He told stories. He was fun.
Jerry Lynn on the retirement tour. I bet that was pretty
That
cool.
it was awesome, but it was weird because of course I grew up with Jerry Lynn and Rob Van Dam, and I'm not Rob Van Dam, so I was very nervous. But Jerry was like, I heard you like to do funny stuff. And I was like, well, yes, sir. He's like, good, because I am beat up and I'm just trying to get through this tour. So let's have fun. And he was fun, and and he relaxed. He didn't kill himself, but he still worked hard. Nobody in the crowd felt cheated. And and he had never met me. The next day he wouldn't remember my name, but he showed up. We put a good match together. Everyone enjoyed it. The promoter was happy, so he got his money's worth. And I get to say I wrestled Jerry Lynn, which never would have thought, even as a wrestler, when I hit match 500 and I was like, I'm going to do 500 more, I never would have thought, in this next 500, I'm going to wrestle Jerry Lynn.
Yeah, him and Rob Van Dam, some classics.
Right,
ECW,
exactly.
Yeah. I know a lot of independent companies. They'll fly those guys in. I know like Jack Swagger's working the indies and stuff. Has SPW ever done that, or you guys just try to keep it the local
We
talent?
just don't have the budget to do it. It's before I was in SPW in the crowd, they brought in Virgil once, and I don't know. I never even heard the story of how they got Virgil, but I have found we do pretty well with our main eventers being our guys, and we could spike the house, I'm sure, but say because all our guys are getting $20. And there's no money left over. It's not like SPW has a huge savings account. There are some shows where we come out ahead, but there's also equally half the shows where we're down 30, down 50, or whatever, depending on the attendance. So we always discuss it when people call, hey, on Saturday I'm using so-and-so. Would you like to use them on Sunday? Well, how much would it cost? Well, you'd have to do half the air, hotel, and $250 a piece or $300. And you start doing the math and you're like, well, they're not going to put 30 people in the crowd. They're going to put 4. Maybe 5. You know what I mean?
It's not worth it.
So it's not, if we had sponsors and we had like money to spend, we would do it just for the good experience for the wrestlers. To give someone like Scoot, who's a young up and comer, chance to work someone much better than him. But I know that it doesn't. You have to be at a different level. APW is a different level than us. They're running the Cow Palace, so they bring in all these names, and they have sponsorships, and they're bringing money, and we're not there. And I don't know if we'd ever go there, because if I had extra money, there's still a quarter of the roster works for free. Like all the core guys at SPW who came up in SPW, we don't get paid. So if I ever was 200 ahead, Drake Frost would get his first PO. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or Scoot would get his first PO versus giving it to a guy who 2 weeks later won't even remember
being there.
I was in NorCal for some company. I don't remember.
Well, I wrestled 6 times.
Right. So it's a philosophical thing and a lack of options. If I won the lottery, and now I was running SPW as a millionaire, I'd bring in people all the time, but even then it would be to benefit the boys. Like, oh, you'd have a good match with him and maybe he could hook you up and get you booked here or whatever.
The other big thing is the Halloween battle royal that SPW
Yeah.
does. I think that's great. So tell a little bit about what exactly the Halloween battle royal
Basically,
is.
the Halloween Battle Royal is like a Royal Rumble, so two people
Mhm.
start. But the difference is we all dress as other wrestlers. So, um, and so it's 20 to 30 people dressed up as their favorite or least favorite. Usually WWE, but
Mhm.
often we dress as each other, So somebody will come out as Samurai with the world's worst
Right.
bald wig
Right.
with a
Right.
ponytail and back, or what have you. And it's fun for fun's sake. And people look forward. There's already wrestlers in the locker room going, I think this year I'm going to be so and so.
Mhm.
Like it's something we all look forward to, and it's different because wrestling's supposed to be fun, and the more fun the wrestlers have, the more fun the crowd has. And don't get me wrong, I love watching like Jekyll's and Bobby Hart just kick the crap out of each other. There's no comedy spots. It's just two guys punching each other. But you can't have a whole show of that because now you're MMA with a script.
Yeah.
Like you need to have as much. It's the circus mentality.
Mhm.
You need the trapeze artist, but you also need the strongman and you need the clowns. And the battle royal is just fun for the crowd and fun for the wrestlers. And there's a certain percentage of wrestlers who don't participate because they're too cool for it, and that's fine. But they're the same guys who go to the Halloween party in street clothes.
Yeah.
You're missing the point.
Yeah.
You're missing the
Enough
yes.
more.
You're there and you're observing, but it's so much more fun when you do stupid stuff.
Yeah, I think that I just always enjoy SPW shows because it is that kind of diversity, like
Right.
you kind of see on a Monday Night Raw, the variety show. You
Yeah.
can't have a show of we're gonna have 20-minute matches for 3 hours. People are after a while about the third,
Right.
second one, you're gonna be all right.
Yep.
So, any big shows, big matches you have coming up here in the near future?
The biggest thing I've booked right now through the end of April, which I'm really excited about. That I have no weekends off. But they're all, and no offense to any of the companies who use me, but they're all the same companies I've appeared for. No debuts, nothing big. So the anniversary show on April 15th is what I'm looking forward to. Card's not even set yet. I don't know what I have, but the SPW anniversary show is always special. So that's the one that I'm working towards. Like I'm thinking of new gear and entrance gear and all of this, and gonna put money into it. And then at the beginning of May, we all go. My crew always goes to Vegas for the Cauliflower Alley convention, so we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, tell a little bit about that for people that don't
So
know
Cauliflower
exactly.
Alley is a charity organization that's existed. I think they just had their 53rd year, and it's a fundraiser for retired wrestlers, boxers, and stunt people from Hollywood to people who can't cover their medical expenses or need help. And all the funds go there. But part of it is the yearly convention in Vegas, where the old timers get together, but they also have 2 days of wrestling. So we've been on Frost Dive team like the last 4 years on it, and it's the only chance where like you're wrestling, but right before you go through the curtain, you bump into Edge because Beth Phoenix is getting an award at the next night's,
That's
and so Edge is hanging out at the convention. The 1 year we hit Frost Eye's double team is where I jump on his shoulders and hit a suplex off his back. Scott Hall was in the crowd and jumped up and gave us a round of applause.
That's awesome.
And things like that. And that's we were talking earlier about. To most wrestlers, all wrestlers are equal.
Yeah.
Even though there is still a little snobbery, like, well, that guy's a backyard or that guy's green. But you put a group of wrestlers together and you're all wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
Cauliflower is where that's so true because it's 2 nights of wrestling and then a convention and then different wrestlers doing panels where you'll hear like Hood Slam's AJ Kirsch will do a panel on social media because that guy's a monster on social media.
Oh yeah, his whole the promo champ with
right,
Rock
exactly,
great.
And then the very next panel will be Jim Ross, Jerry Lawler, and like Memphis people doing panels on commentary. And you just sit and you're like, I'm this close
to
JR and Jerry Lawler talking about commentary. And then they have a banquet at the end, which is an award banquet. And everyone wears suits and tuxes, and it's ridiculously expensive, but it's how they raise their money for the con. And like this year, Harlem Heat's getting an award. And as a tag team wrestler, all of us are like, well, we've got to go to the banquet this year. We're going to see Harlem Heat and then listen to them tell tag team stories.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then I know you guys do a lot of what's cool is the Comic Cons and stuff.
Yes.
Stockton Con. I know like
Sac Anime.
Grape City Con's got one. Booker T's going to be there for that.
We'll also be wrestling there. It'll be Bushido will be the host of the show, but Bushido is our sister promotion. If you see a Bushido show, the SPW crew will be there, and vice versa. If there's an SPW show, Daniel Torch and Bobby Hart will be booked because we're so close.
So does that happen a lot with other promotions, maybe around the state or around the country? Is that, hey, you scratch my back, I scratch your
Yeah,
back in terms of
it has to, because nobody runs enough to get what you need if you only work for one company. You know what I mean? If
yeah.
you only work for one company, at most you're getting 1 or 2 bookings a month. East Bay Pro Wrestling in Pacheco runs twice a month. Other than that, everyone's once a month. So most of us want to wrestle. I want to wrestle 3 times a week, 4 times if somebody starts running Thursdays. So you start working with together, and most of the wrestlers, like if you go to SPW, many of those people own companies in other towns, and I work for them. So there's the stereotype of, you if you work for this company you'll never work here, the hate, but the love is actually much bigger, which is, where are you tomorrow? Oh, have a good match, I'm here. And then you're texting, how'd yours go? How was the draw? How was so and so in the main event? And then you're telling stories, because we all want each other to succeed, and we want every show to draw 1,000, because now we'll make money. Very few, you have to be, I think, petty to root against other companies. Like, even if they don't hire you, if you're sitting there going, oh, I hope they fail, how does failure help you? Unless they're running your town the same night, like purposely trying to, half off if you know,
Yeah, which we were talking about off air, kind of that Sasha and Ronda thing. Like,
yeah.
why be jealous and upset when you could make a lot more money?
I believe success leads to success and failure leads to failure. So if everyone around you is succeeding, that leads to you succeeding. Everyone's failing, you're going to fail too, because you can't succeed on your own.
Yes,
So
especially with the independent wrestling scene. I mean, I think about 10, maybe 12. Really right after the death of WCW, there wasn't
right,
much of a vibrant. I would say in the last 5 years, it's really grown, hasn't
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Big time. Anything else you want to promote here as we kind of wrap up the conversation?
Really, if you've never seen a show, go see a show, because it's, even if you watch WWE, indie wrestling is unique. You can compare it to the circus or theater or WWE, but until you've sat in the crowd and watched these guys who are waiters and teachers and metal recycling plant operators and stuff like that, you don't actually understand what it is. Um, and you'll have your favorites and you'll hate guys, but it's sport it. It's like music. It only survives with the sport of people coming out and going, that was cool, and then you tell your friends that was cool, and then the attendance grows.
Indie wrestling is just nice because it's the more intimate setting. It's like going to see a club band instead of an arena band.
Exactly.
So cool. I appreciate you being the first guest on.
Yeah,
here.
No problem.
Yeah, big time. I'll put it all up on. Make sure that you're tagged on Twitter, everything,
Sweet.
and have everybody listen. Have wrestling fans, anything like that. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right. Once again, I want to thank Sir Samurai for joining us this week on Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast. Great to have him on here. Great discussion. If you are ever in the Sacramento area and you want to see some great independent wrestling, third Sunday every month at the SPW Arena at 6200 McMahon Drive in Sacramento, California. Go on out there, have yourself a good time. The show is great. Once again, any questions, any responses for the show, you can hit me up on the old Twitter machine at Nick's RNW Podcast. That's all one word, at Nick's RNW Podcast. Give me a follow. I'll follow you back. Tweet me what you like about the show. Also, social media on Facebook, you got Nick's Rock and Wrestling Podcast. Go give that a like. And the Gmail account. Any questions, any suggestions, shoot me an email at the rockandwrestlingpodcast.com. Thank you for listening this week. Next week, we're going to do a little bit more heavy on the rock and roll side of things, since we spent the first 2 episodes talking about a lot of wrestling. The third episode, we're going to spend a little more time talking about rock and roll for you rock and roll fans out there. Thanks again for listening.